Hey, y'all. I think y'all guys are going to enjoy this video. You see, many times when we do interviews, we often interview people who grew up as children as Jehovah's Witnesses. And we will often hear them share a very common experience of how challenging it was to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses growing up as a kid. Well, this video is a little different in that it's going to allow us to see a person who grew up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but he had the opportunity to peer inside because of his family and who his family associated with. He got to see, as they say, how the other side lives. I think you enjoy this.
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hi, this is Lady C.
Hey, then this is JT.
Welcome to The Critical Thought. And we want to welcome Sean to the program.
Hi, good to be here.
Hey, man, glad to have you on. Glad to have you on.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
So Sean, you've reached out. You had a lot of information about, the Watchtower, and you had some interesting experiences that you wanted to share. So we wanted to bring you on the program so that you could share those with our audience.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you? Like, how did you become a Jehovah's Witness?
I didn't really have much of a choice in the matter. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. My parents, they were contacted out in the field ministry, and I think they were on the tail end, or they might have just missed the whole 1975 thing. So none of that was really an issue for them, and it was never mentioned when I was growing up. I never even knew about it until way later in life. And I should mention I'm 38 now, and I have been out for, it'll be 2 years in this coming up June. I left when I was 36. But yeah, I was raised in the truth. And it's pretty much all I knew. My parents were really, really active in every congregation that we were in. They were always out in service. My dad was, he still is an elder, but he's been an elder for as long as I can remember. So yeah, that's what I mean. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a say in the matter. Born in, and that's it. That's all I knew. Never knew anything else. Didn't really entertain anything else at all.
Now,
Wow.
Sean, now you stated that this is all you ever knew was the truth. And I know we're going to get some backlash from our audience. So you want to kind of clear up that? You want to kind of talk about what you think about this as being the truth?
That's right. Yeah.
So?
I know, right?
You know what?
It's all good.
Let me ask you guys, how long did it take you before the colloquialisms or the vernacular or whatever you want to call it? How long did it take before it left you?
We still do it sometimes.
We probably still do it. Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's so ingrained in us, man. And then you hear it all the time. And people always oppose something. It's not the truth, but everybody gets the joke. I mean, everybody gets the joke. But I mean, but I think it's important to understand. It really demonstrates just how powerful the indoctrination is. See, when I hear people say it, it just tells me, man, this organization really impacted us greatly. I mean, greatly.
Yeah. Well, to your point, that was something that was really surprising to me. And like I said, I've been out for 2 years now, but it's like these layers just continue to peel off. It's just layer after layer. Just when I think I'm over it or I'm past whatever it is, there's always some new thing where it's like, oh man, I can't believe I still think that way, or something will slip, like just what happened now, calling it the truth. So yeah, it's not the truth. That's just what we called it.
I know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's funny. That's kind of how you could check other witnesses. It's the lingo. It's like if you weren't up on the lingo, people would kind of look at you funny. And it's funny now, like I think going back, if I ever wanted to go back just to like sneak in, just spy or crash it, I think there's probably even some new lingo that's come up,
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that is one way culturally to kind of check and gauge to see who's legit and who's not. Right.
Yeah. We know somebody, they tried to slide in one time and they went into the hall and they asked the attendant, do you have any, old songbooks I can borrow one from the coat hanger, from the coat room?
Yeah. Can I get a Kingdom Ministry?
And the two attendants were like, what? Don't you have like someone may have left one behind I could use?
Busted.
And they're like, we don't use songbooks. We use iPad.
Yeah.
He said, man, I was so busted.
Oh, that is funny.
Oh,
so,
man.
Yeah, so you were born in. So then what do you want to talk about how you woke? You want to just talk about how you woke up then?
Yeah, tell us.
Oh, man, that was that was a traumatic experience because just to give you a little bit of background, lots of people are born in. That's not unique to me. But the level, and I hate to talk about it this way because it's not like I ever thought I was better than anybody else, but my dad, because of his responsibility within the organization, put us in contact with, I guess you could say, like heavy hitters within the organization. So he was, and I think he still is, heavily involved in the, I was going to give myself away. I was going to call them district conventions, but they're called regional conventions now. But he was deeply involved in regional convention work. And he always worked either in the chairman's office or in the administration office. So we got to meet, governing body members that came through. We got to go to dinner with them. There was special pioneers and missionaries and Bethel speakers, you name it. Like anybody who was a quote mover and a shaker in the organization, we got to hang out with them. We went on family vacations with circuit overseers and we had district overseers over at the house all the time. So our last name, the Miller family, locally kind of had some weight to it just because of not anything I did, but because of all the things that my dad accomplished organizationally. And then also my mom has been pioneering for years and years and years. So that's what I'm giving you this background to kind of help, you guys and the listener to understand that when you're that deeply involved and it's all you've ever known, you're kind of like, they never present it as a ladder that you're climbing, but you are kind of progressing. You're on a fast track, so to speak, when you're kind of rubbing shoulders with those people, because they do have influence. So when it came time to like start waking up and piecing things together, there was this really, really painful crash that happened because all of these things that you thought were just so important and unmovable are actually worthless. And it hurt so bad because I know that both of you can talk about this. Like we just took that stuff so seriously, like the titles, circuit overseer, district overseer, pioneer, like those things were all we had. And when I realized like, oh, this is meaningless. Like these are dumb. These are just totally made up, like little carrots on the end of a stick for people to incentivize them to keep working hard and going out in service. It was, man, it was rough. I'm not going to lie. I had a total breakdown. It was unbelievable. I kind of lost track of your question there, Lady C, but yeah, the waking up process was really, really difficult.
You made a good point when you said that those titles were just worthless because everybody was put on a pedestal that had those titles. Mm-hmm. But when I got the title of a pioneer or my husband was an elder, I didn't feel any of that. I didn't feel anything. I never really felt entitled in those positions. I thought it was more pressure.
Oh yeah, totally.
Crazy, and then you got people expecting you to live up to this title. That's and exactly you were right. Just a human, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the expectation that used to stress me out the most, because it was like, yeah, this is cool, but that's not the path that I chose for myself. That's not the path that I wanted to go down. Like, I was always very creative. Like, I wanted to be a professional musician. I wanted to be a professional artist. And we'll get to that later on in the conversation, I'm sure. That's what I do now. But, all of those things were considered like worthless pursuits. And it was like, well, you should take all that time and energy and talent you have and dump it into the organization. So that's also painful to realize, like, any of that energy that I had or potential that I had at that time is lost, or the stuff that I put into it was just, it's all a wash now, but yeah, I can't agree more with you, Lady C. Like, the expectation and the pressure that comes with that is really, really hard to deal with. Some people thrive under those circumstances. Some people like crave it. That's not really ever been my thing as far as like the position and stuff goes. I was never really into that.
Yeah, it's important that people understand when you are moving with people at that level, you literally get to see how the other half lives, and it ain't like the rest of us.
Totally different.
Totally. My wife and I, we were because of being a former Bethelite, we had circuit overseers who were former Bethelites, and they used a lot of the elders in our hall. Our congregation had like 4 or 5 ex-Bethelites, well connected in terms of circuit and regional level. And so we were used. And so we were invited also to work in the chair. I was invited to work in the chairman's office. Your wife accompanies you. And I'm going to tell you, man, we were just blown away with the nonchalant. I mean, probably the biggest thing we saw was how nobody paid any attention to the meetings.
I was just about to say that.
Man, I mean, we have our, we were up in the booth looking down at the friends out there, the hard seats and hot and uncomfortable. Yeah. And we had a cooler, we had the refrigerator and stuff, and they kept it stacked with hoagies and Danishes and sodas and whatever you wanted. And so you saw how these other half live, and they would be back there, just turn to the side, just talking. Yeah, we was in Spain last week, and I tell you, it was just, and the whole assembly is just going on, and and we're sitting there like, should we engage or should we just be quiet? Yeah. That's funny that you say that, because I have almost all of my memories of the chairman's office and the administration office are complete opposite of what you would expect that environment to be like. Yes.
Everybody's cutting up in there. It's a party in there. Like nobody's paying attention. And you might get a stretch where everybody kind of quiets down and kind of, follows along for a minute. You might get some quiet time, but for the most part, there's people coming and going. Nobody's really focused on what's happening. Really? I mean, you might have a guy who has the outline. He's following the outline to make sure the brother on stage
that's what I used to do.
Isn't goof? Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what I used to do that. The reader.
You had the little sniper scope on that brother, right?
Yeah, we did. We was really shooting. Let him go off key. Let him go off key. Yeah.
Off script, he's done.
He's done.
Exactly. That is so crazy.
We're gonna drop him on the field.
Yeah.
I bet you a lot of people don't even realize that they do that.
No, yeah. I didn't know they did that. I did not know that there was a brother in the chairman's office whose responsibility is to follow along with the speaker, and whether he's doing it from an outline, and don't let it be a manuscript. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. If you
because this has to be word for word. And it's amazing to watch that. I know, remember Lady C, they was up there telling jokes. It was cutting jokes. They were cutting jokes up there.
Well, that was an intermission, and it was the It was the news.
We went on the news service, I think. Yeah, I think we were on the news service. Yeah, we were on the news service.
It was the circuit overseer, and it was a couple in our congregation, and they were telling dumb blonde jokes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh God.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't quite work those kind of jokes, And
the one sister, the sister that was laughing about it, she was blonde.
Yeah.
And the circuit overseer's wife was blonde. So they were telling dumb blonde jokes, and I'm standing there looking all stupid like, oh God.
Yeah.
We might not want to engage in this right? one. I mean, just crazy. Amazing. I mean, and so that's you saw a different. I remember Ralph Walls was in the chairman's office, and somebody had paid for him to go on a cruise. And I remember him back there describing it. This is what he says. He says, it was just so amazing. We came back into the room, and my wife had left some personal items, little slips and stuff. And they had came in and they had made it into like a flower for her. And they had turned down the bed and left the chocolate. and this is what they're discussing. I'm thinking to myself, there's a Buffalo man got somebody paying for his way and had the friends that they can't even get to the assembly this weekend,
Yeah.
But like I said, they roll on a different plane, man. I'm just telling you, they roll on the plane.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they really do. It's that was probably looking back now, because in the thick of it, I didn't really understand what was going on. Like, I was a kid for most of those times, so I didn't realize like, oh, everybody's experience out there is different. Like they're hot, they're all sweaty, they got, their coolers under their seat, and I'm up here on a couch, hanging out with brother so and so from Bethel, and it's totally different. And I guess the word that we should use is it's hypocritical or imbalanced, really. Like, everybody says in Jehovah's organization, everybody's on the same level, right? Everybody's on the same, we're all equal, but that's not really how it is. That's not really true. So it's funny, those experiences, I think, were kind of, I wouldn't say essential to my waking up, but they did play a part as I started to piece things together and go, oh, my experience was much different than some other people's. And I think that a lot of the things that I got to experience were maybe unfair in a way, because I should also mention, I feel like as far as witnesses go and witness culture goes, I feel like I kind of know the spectrum, because I've been disfellowshipped before. I've been reproved. I've been a pioneer. I've been a ministerial servant. I've been in a drama when they had the live action dramas at the conventions. So I feel like I understand the spectrum, right? And when I look back at my coming back in after being disfellowshipped, that's what made me realize like just how unfair it is for people at that level to not understand what just your average witness is going through. Like, when I was coming back from being disfellowshipped, I was also trying to raise, I was newly married, had a brand new baby, didn't really have a good job. So I was like building from nothing. And that was a completely different witness experience than being raised with the silver spoon in your mouth. It was like, oh, this is what the average Jehovah's Witness goes through. Like, just to get to a convention for most people is so hard and so expensive. And the guilt trip that comes with getting to these conventions when you're already tired, you're newly married, you got a brand new baby, you don't have a good job, you got to drop all this money just to come out to, in our case, it was San Francisco or Sacramento. It's difficult. So I feel like if the upper crust had a little bit more of the experience of the average witness, organizationally, things might be different, might be a little bit easier on the flock, so to speak. I don't know if any of that makes sense to you, but that was a big deal, really, really big deal to me when I was trying to work my way back in.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And that is the whole thing when you consider that those who at Bethel, who make decisions about millions of people's lives, it is absolutely important that people understand that these guys have not paid a water bill in 40, 50 years.
Right.
A gas bill, a light bill. So when they get up there and speak, brothers, you need to quit your job if you can't make it to the meeting. These guys, they jet in and they jet out. Okay? If they fly in from Bethel, they do a little special talk in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people, and they tell people to quit their jobs because you can't get to the meetings and everything. And then they hop on a plane and fly back to New York. And so these guys have never worked a job where they have to pay for something. Many of these guys have been at Bethel for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, man. Some of these boys came to Bethel when they was 19, and now they're 61. Right. And they have not paid a light bill since they left home. Right. So when you have people who are that much out of touch with the reality of what people are struggling with, and the thing of this, and you know this, when you are even at the little level I was at, you get what's called the green handshake. Friends come to you, they want you to marry their daughter. And you got brothers giving you, brother. Their daughter and stuff, right? Yeah. But when you are the speakers and stuff, man, they line these guys' pockets, man. You talking about love offerings? Love offerings, baby. Right. So that makes it very interesting because you're right. These people do not understand what it is like to be the average Jehovah's Witness struggling. And that is a problem in this organization. You and I, and one of the things that you know is you didn't go back and tell people what you saw when you were in the chairman's office.
No, not at all.
You didn't tell nobody.
Yeah. Right. So like, is your wife born in or raised in, or is she a witness? Did she ever become a witness?
Yeah, she did. It's actually the typical cliche story for why I got disfellowshipped. Every young man who gets disfellowshipped is usually for one of a handful of reasons. And mine is, I met somebody who was not in the truth, and she was raised Pentecostal, and she ended up leaving the Pentecostal church, and she kind of bounced around from other churches like non-denominational and Baptist and small private Bible study groups. She's she's just a spiritual person by nature. She's not a organized religious person, even though that's kind of what her background is. She's never really been somebody that puts a lot of stock into that, which is funny. It's kind of, well, why'd you join the Witnesses then? But we got together. I got disfellowshipped. She got pregnant. We got married, and then we kind of worked our way back together because she was also studying at the time that I was disfellowshipped. So, man, that seems so long ago. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. But she was not born in. No, she was baptized.
Now I got a question for you.
Yeah,
I got a question for you, Sean. And I always want to ask.
I bet you got a lot of questions now. Right?
I always like to ask the brothers that. Now we have a situation in the organization where we have 40 single sisters in our congregation. Couldn't find a man, and then you are a man available, and you go outside and marry somebody else. So what's going on with this?
What's been nice. Good night, everybody. I'll see you later.
One of them crazy witnesses. I could marry a crazy witness.
Yeah, I just want to know what in the world is going on with why the brothers just can't seem to find a sister, and there's just so many of them. What was your situation? You didn't have any available sisters in your congregation?
Lady C asking the hard-hitting questions.
I told you I stay in my lane, man. I stay in my lane. I don't leave my lane.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. That is a very, very good question. Man, it's been almost 12 years now. So I got to think. There was sisters that I liked for sure, definitely. But I think, and this, I don't know. I think it's because there's just so much pressure when you're dating as a witness, and there's got to be so many people involved in the dating process Like, you got to have a chaperone everywhere. You gotta be on the level with everyone at all times. Like, where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you with? What are you talking about? And the the consequences for, what they would consider like unclean behavior or whatever are just so astronomically high. That kind of stuff doesn't exist in the real world, So when you meet somebody who is just kind of like free and pure in the sense that they know how to have a relationship like a normal human being, without all the added pressure, it's very, very refreshing. And my wife is still that type of person. Like, she's just very honest, very straight shooting, very open. And, you get in the dating scene with witnesses, like, there's just so much contrived behavior. And you're like, it's almost like you're auditioning, like, oh, I'm a pioneer. I'm a ministerial servant. I'm this, I'm that. And it's just, I don't know. I think when I met her, she was just so different from everybody else. And that's not to say that the sisters I liked at the time were bad people. It's just, she was totally different.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think you really highlight the basic problem. It's the culture again. You are auditioning. One of the things I've talked to guys like yourself who they just found so many of the sisters, they was just, I'm spiritual, brother. I'm spiritual, brother. Let me give you the best example I can give you. That was a sister I knew in New York. She was well known, well liked. She was single. A lot of Bethelites had interest in this sister, right? And she was so spiritual. She was so spiritual. This is what the joke was. And everybody knew this joke about her. It went basically like this. Lady C placed 2 magazines today. Denise, she started a Bible study today. But this sister, she formed a new congregation today. Okay? And so this girl was clocking like 100 hours a month. She would do like 200, 300, 400 magazines a month. And this became her calling card. Mm-hmm. And so in the organization, you have to put on this air of spirituality. Lady C and I, people often ask us about when we met. And that's the kind of way it was with us. We look back at some of our conversations and everything was always trying to show the other person that I'm up to reading the latest magazine. I read magazine came out this morning. I finished it this afternoon. That kind of crazy stuff.
It got to the point that we had some tapes that we had.
Yeah.
And when JT goes, I don't even want to hear them. But they were so old that they started breaking as I was trying to play them through cassette tapes. Yeah. But it got to the point was like, oh my God, we went out in service today. Mom was out. We spent 8 hours out in the ministry. It was so crazy. We never talked about anything. Nothing. So if there was something going on in the world, we didn't even talk about world events. Mm-hmm. It was just all what we were doing for Jehovah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I mean, when you talk about it now, isn't it it's so weird, right?
Oh my goodness, man.
It's so weird. And I JT, the impression that you did of like, brother, I'm so spiritual. I know sisters like that.
Yes.
Where it's like, like, girl, chill. Like,
when cool. You see sisters, I just love Jehovah. I just love okay, that's cool. I got you.
Yeah, I'm not trying to knock anybody. But it's just weird. It is.
And it's only when you look at it now do you see just how, as witnesses, we never, and me and Lady C talk about this all the time. We never were able to develop a healthy relationship with someone of the opposite sex, because as you mentioned before, anytime anything that involves a brother or sister, everyone automatically mind just goes, they must be having sex. They're gonna have sex. You gotta stop them.
Yep.
Right.
And
I
remember,
man, seeing where brothers a sister would be walking, and the brother would say the sister need a ride, and the sister had to get in the back seat like driving Miss Daisy and stuff, just so they wouldn't be hugging and kissing. He just
get in the trunk, sister.
They just 2 blocks from the Kingdom Hall. Why do you think they're going to get naked between there and the Kingdom Hall? Who?
Right.
The witness thinks that, man.
Right.
The witness thinks that. And so
Right.
as the denomination, as the group of people, man, we never were able to develop a healthy relationship with people of the opposite sex. And the result is in the witness world, you end up with some very awkward marriages and awkward relationships that's sad.
When it comes to that interaction, you're right. It's not healthy. Like there's no, people just out in regular life, they establish friendships. What's so crazy is there is no like real friendships between a man and a woman or a teenager and like 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, right? It's just not allowed because everybody automatically thinks the absolute worst.
Yes.
So you're under scrutiny all the time. And I just don't know how you could expect to have a healthy relationship when you're under a magnifying glass like that. On top of all of the, I'm sure people pick up on this. And this is one of the reasons why I really, really like your channel is you can imitate the theocratic speech to the point where it's just goofy, right?
It's goofy.
It's like, it's totally goofy. I remember I went to San Diego. I was trying to date this one sister, this one young woman. And we went to San Diego and I went to meeting with her. And I was giving comments like I've never given before. Like, well, brother, it's because we're keeping up with God's chariot that we can understand these beautiful things that the sacrifice of Jesus made. Like, I didn't even know what I was saying, but you just fall into that like hyper theocratic speech to like put on this show that you're super spiritual, right? To impress her mom and dad. and that's one of the reasons why I really like your channel is because you do that. I don't even know if you're conscious that you do it, but you do it often. It kills me every time because like you would just do that with other people at the meeting. Like, oh,
yes,
very encouraging to see you, brother. Yeah, lovely. It's like, you never talk like that as soon as you leave the Kingdom Hall. but
amazing.
But for people that weren't witnesses, you just won't totally get it. Like any interaction that you had is just this constant pressure of like signaling and all the lingo and everything. It's like, man, to loop it back to your question, that's probably why I never dated witness girls successfully because it was just too much pressure.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer.
That's good though. But I was just saying, there's just so many people, and we find that after leaving the religion, there's so many people that once they find out this isn't the truth, they're no longer attracted to their spouses anymore.
Yeah.
And so now they're gone. They're no longer with them. That's pretty bad.
In my case, I couldn't be happier. I mean, it's really because of her that I woke up. I would have never, ever woken up had I married a witness woman.
Wow.
Really?
I don't think so. Yeah, I really don't think so. Because
what were some of the things that was going on in your relationship that was helping you to wake up?
That's a really good question. So it's really, really difficult to start a brand new marriage while you're disfellowshipped and your spouse is not. I think that it's difficult to just maintain a marriage anyway. Like people change, circumstances change, we rub each other the wrong way, whatever. Throw some kids into the mix and now you're stressed out and everything like that. So there was a period of time where, and I think I would venture to guess that it's like this for everybody that wakes up. You start waking up before you even know you're waking up. You start waking up and this process has started. And we kind of started getting into more and more arguments that focused around like procedural stuff of being a witness. And those kind of things just never, ever resonated with her. And toward the end, I mean, they didn't resonate with me at all. It was just like, you know, I either have a relationship with God or I don't. And it's not because I didn't go out in service today. That's the way it should work, right? So we started having more and more like spiritually in-depth conversations where there was critical thinking involved. Like, well, the Bible says this about my relationship with God, but the organization I belong to says I can only have it this way, that these two things do not align. And it got to the point where we would just, like, I would get really upset, like really mad, and she'd get really mad, and she wasn't going to meetings with me for a while. And I, you know, looking back, I think there was times when our marriage was at the breaking point because of certain things that just wouldn't exist had we not been in that culture. Like that pressure again is just the whole headship thing. Like, well, our marriage is suffering because you're not coming to meetings with me, and I said you should come to meetings with me, and I'm the head, and you say that you respect the headship, but you're not coming to meet. You know, it creates all this garbage that doesn't need to exist. But yeah, I mean, she's essential to my waking up story. I mean, she's the whole reason it happened, because she just, it's in her nature. She pokes. She likes to dig deep. She likes to ask questions. And like you two have said on your channel, I'm going to butcher this, but it's better to have questions that can't be answered than you'll have to finish it for me. I can't remember the
answers that you can't question.
There you go. Right. There you go.
Yeah. And that's true.
And that's, yeah.
Well, what do you think caused the initial crack? Because that's the way, like you said before, people generally start before they even realize it. That's what makes it. That's the part that a lot of people don't understand. You know, one of the biggest questions people ask is, tell me what magazine I can show my mama that's going to get her out. And there is no magazine you can get her out. She has to be at a certain point in her life where she is willing to be honest with herself. Like we do Bible studies. It's funny, we do it the Bible studies all the time. But we can't do the same examination we ask a Bible study to do.
Yeah,
but
that's
for yourself,
crazy.
It's great. So what would you say was the beginning of the end, as we often say?
I think both my wife and I were just at very, very low points emotionally, and we just felt so bad. And you know, witnesses will say, well, that's discouragement, and the answer for discouragement is do more. And it's like, well, no, brother, you don't understand. It's the doing more that's made me feel so bummed out. And it was kind of going from like this position of being in favor and then being disfellowshipped and coming back. I never really got back on the horse, so to speak, just because my time and energy was eaten up. And I started to like really ask some questions about things that I believed that just I didn't feel comfortable saying around other witnesses, like the whole governing body thing. I remember asking my dad, it was after the Watchtower that came out and said, they said something like, if we give you directions that don't sound right or correct from a strategical human standpoint, just trust us anyway. I thought that was crazy. I was like, what the heck? And I remember asking my dad, I was like, are you cool with that? Like, do you believe that? And do you just accept everything that comes down the line? And the answer I got from him was just so dodgy that I was like, oh man, I wonder if there's like, it just made me so uncomfortable. So I started like, it's that one little bit of discomfort that makes you start to think like, what's up here? What's up with that? Like, what could they potentially tell us to do that I would be uncomfortable with and just have to say, okay, brother, I guess so. So then your mind starts running like, well, what if they had told us to strap on our black Nikes and drink some Kool-Aid. Like, would we just have to do that? And I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but your mind goes to these places where it's like, well, that's what's implied, right? Like, basically anything that they say that sounds goofy, you just have to go along with. So that was my first foray into Exjw YouTube. And there was 2 videos. The first one was the Tight Pants Tony talk. And I wasn't there for that one. I missed that one. And I just thought, how could he say this? This is insane. And it was a rebuttal video from another ex-Jehovah's Witness. And they did a really good job. It was it was full of humor. So I wasn't scared by it. And then the second one was actually a video by you guys. And I remember coming in, I was ready to rip you guys apart, because I was like, oh, look at these guys. This guy, JT, he's wearing a tie. He's trying to be sneaky. Okay, I'm going to listen to what he has to say. I bet you I could pick it apart in a minute. And everything that you said was all this behind the scenes stuff that I had been exposed to early on as a kid and a teenager, and later on as a young ministerial servant, where it was just, I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy, this is legit. Like he knows what he's talking about. And then from that one, I just kept watching and watching and watching. And it was with this eye of like, I'm going to bust him on something. And it just never came. And I was like, oh shoot. That's when you have that moment of like,
yeah, oh, I know exactly how you felt, man. I'll be honest with you. When I first started, I made a decision. I says, I'm not going to read any apostate material. I don't care what it is. They can say what they want to. I ain't reading that stuff. And so and at this time, a lot of elders were actually online. A lot of Bethelites were online. We had circulars here, and they'd be going back and forth. And so I jumped in too, Right. And I remember I'm saying, I'm not going to read no apostate stuff. And these guys were like, JT, you say you secretary, right? Go to the Kingdom Hall, look in the file, letter so-and-so, date so-and-so, and get back with us. I mean, I be going through the files, man, and pull the letter out. I'm like, John, he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
And so I kept waiting to read the apostate stuff, and everything these guys was pouring out to me was stuff that the boys themselves wrote, man.
That's right. The thing. The most impactful stuff was not the people that were fiery and heated up and yelling and, like all of those types of videos were valuable to me later. Because, when you become fully awake, you just eat everything. It's just I've probably watched every Exjw video out there, but in the beginning, it was more about policy than it was about scripture, because a very interesting thing happens for witnesses that are all about the Bible and the scriptural reasons for why things happen. You'll find out eventually that the guys at the top don't play by the rules that they write. And the truth is this fluid thing. What was true 10 years ago is false now. And what you could get disfellowship for 10 years ago is being taught from the platform. And that's what really scared me, honestly. It freaked me out. It made me really, really creeped out, because it was like, these guys have so much control over people, and they manipulate using the Bible, which just felt so gross to me. And it was more about policy and the things that were behind that. But if you try to apply scriptural reasoning, even Jehovah's Witness incorrect scriptural reasoning to policy that they write, it doesn't hold up half the time, and it changes. So yeah, those videos were really influential. But my wife, she got crisis of conscience, and that was it, man. That was it. Yeah, I never even read the full book. I think I read 2 chapters. Oh, actually, excuse me. I never read them. I had my wife read them to me. And And so at the time that she got crisis of conscience, there was a brother named Rolf Ferrulli. I don't know if you know him or read about his book, but he wrote a book where he blasts the governing body. And I think his book was more influential for me, and I think would be very, very powerful for somebody who's a witness watching this, because he still believes. He's still a believing witness, following by the rules. He got disfellowshipped for writing this book. And all of his reasoning is taken from current witness understanding of the scriptures, and he proves that the governing body should not be in the position they're in. So you have, again, it's that spectrum, right? You have apostates on one side, you have believers on the other, and they can both come to the same conclusion and say, wait a second, what's happening currently is not right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a guy's name was either Sanford or I think it was Stafford or something. He was a current witness, and he wrote a book trying to defend the organization. And he wrote it just like the writing department writes it. But because he was willing to confront former witnesses, he ran into problems. The guys in the writing department, they set people up. As long as you don't refer back to the old stuff, you can keep it moving. But when you got to go back to the old stuff, that creates a problem. And I'm like you. Yeah, I'm like you, because we talked in one of our videos how these guys jack people's lives. They jack around with people's lives. When you, like you said, you start on Monday with a teaching of God, and by Friday it's a conscious matter, and throughout that week, people have become roadkill along the way. People disfellowship, lost their husband and wife. Yeah. I mean, all kind of crazy stuff. And the witness does not stop and ask the critical thinking question: how God changed from Monday to Friday?
Right.
Yeah.
So, Sean, what are you all doing now? How did you recover from the fallout of being disfellowshipped and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So recovery, that works for different ways for different people. When we made the decision to disassociate, it came at the right time, because we were moving from California to where we are now, which is Austin, Texas. And we were moving for work. So it coincided with our move. So we got a fresh start out here. We met some new people, and it took a while. And even though it's been 2 years, I would consider myself still in recovery, because there's lots and lots of things that still bother me. And I've made my own YouTube videos. But I noticed that I would just get really depressed and really, really angry. Like, I haven't gotten to a place where I can talk about it without getting super angry. It's different with you guys, but on my own, that's why I say I'm still kind of in recovery. But one thing that I think people should do when they leave is it's kind of scary how long the witness mindset stays with you, even if you are physically out, mentally out. There's just still things that you have to shake. So what I did, because I'm a creative person and I'd have hobbies and stuff like that, I just dove headfirst into my career and my hobbies. And part of the thing that witnesses are also kind of behind the eight ball, so to speak, is we're not very well educated about the world in general. So I just started buying books on all kinds of stuff and just started reading and learning about people and psychology and the world around me and, emotions. And I got into therapy, all kinds of stuff. But diving into all of my creative pursuits and my career has been such a huge source of therapy on its own, where you're never really, as a witness, supposed to take credit for anything that you do. It's always credit to God. And if something goes bad, then it's your fault. So it's felt really good to get some wins on my end and just say, well, no, this happened because my wife and I have worked really hard to build this life for ourselves and our kids. So yeah, in a nutshell, I would say just diving into life has been the most therapeutic thing that I could have done.
Yeah, I like that phrase, diving into life. What specific things or suggestions? Because that's one of the questions that people often ask, where do I go now? Because as you mentioned before, we're not allowed to take credit for ourselves. If you wanted a career, you couldn't have one. You'd be discouraged. What things have you seen for yourself that in a practical way, family, friends, neighbors, community, what could witnesses now do that we couldn't do before that you would suggest for many to consider to help them move along this path? Because you're on a new path now.
Yeah. It's funny. So we had the most awkward job in the world as witnesses, right? I think maybe Mormons have an equally awkward position, but we, especially pioneers, like I can understand if you've been a pioneer for a long time, or you've been in the theocratic ministry school for a long time, and you would think, well, shoot, all my time's been wasted, right? If you just kind of flip it on its head and say, well, actually, yeah, the pursuits that you were doing as a witness aren't paying off, but all that training that you got is directly applicable to real world interactions. So, public speaking, for instance, that is like the number one fear for a lot of people. And in the job that I was in, at my last employer, there was opportunities to host webinars, do public, because COVID kind of shut everything down, but we were doing in-person events and speaking events and stuff like that for this technology company I worked for. So if you're looking for a new career path, like think of all the things that you did as a witness, like all the training you got, how to compose yourself. You would show up to a stranger's house on a Saturday morning and want to talk to them about religion and possibly overhaul their entire life to join your cult. So that, if you were successful at that at all, that is a skill that, like, what comes to mind immediately is marketing. Like we were trained, some of the best trained marketers, and we just never knew it. Because you're doing all this stuff for free on top of that. And it's funny you brought that up, because I actually wish that I still had the Theocratic Ministry School guidebook, because there's some breathing exercises in there, and there's some like actual really good advice on how to convince somebody. Like if you're pitching a project, if you're pitching some sort of creative brief or something like that, like all of those things are crazy valuable. Those are like on the job experience things that you'd have to get at a career over years. And we got them for free. But yeah, I mean, starting conversations with people, like you could get on a bus. This is what's funny. My wife kind of made fun of me for this one time, because I felt like really intimidated about going to this meetup here locally in Austin. And she was like, "You're telling me you could talk to somebody about the Bible that you've never met, but now you're afraid to go to this coffee shop and meet these people that want to talk about art, that want to talk about things that you're interested in?" So, we psych ourselves out when we leave, and it is traumatic. It is very painful and very emotional, and it hurts, and you lose a lot, but you do get to keep so much that will help you when you actually leave, to make those connections that you need. So I don't feel qualified to give career advice, but, like in the technology sector, I mean, they constantly need salespeople, marketers, things like that, graphic designers, web designers. I know a lot of witnesses. If you weren't a witness or a window washer, you were probably in some sort of IT or something like that. All those things are in need, and you could do really well at, based on your experience as a witness. So yeah, that would be my advice. Just kind of draw on all of those prior experiences.
Yes. The one thing that I would like to say about what you're saying, I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but one thing I would like to say.
Yeah.
is the Watchtower tries to make it seem like everybody is going to be good at public speaking and all of the things that you just got to saying. Mm-hmm. Everybody is not good at public speaking.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of brothers put me to sleep. You know?
Yeah.
but what you're saying is definitely true. I mean, they gave you courage to get out there. And like your wife said, how can you be afraid to go meet up with some people at the coffee shop and you were at somebody's doorstep trying to convince them that the Jehovah's Witnesses had the truth? So yeah, I think those all play a good role in what we're thinking about in our lives. But I think that so many Jehovah's Witnesses feel like they were so traumatized by the experience that it was very difficult for them to even look at it like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. No, I should preface it. I mean, it took me, like I said, it's 2 years that I've been out. So it took me a while before I felt comfortable to get back out there again. But that's a great point. I mean, there was some pretty bad speakers. They do not have a future in marketing. Those guys.
It's almost like, you know what? I'm going to say this. Okay, when we started going to college, they had this program called prior learning, and I caught on to it really good. I did very well with it. I got my credits. I helped JT get his credits, and I learned what it was all about. And what I learned about that program is that they were going to give you this credit because they were going to give you credit for life learning. Because they realized that a lot of people could go to college and possibly teach the class that they were sitting in, right?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
But it was the way you had to state it to show you learned it. Mm-hmm. You could not write it like a book report. You had to write it up like, this is what I learned. This is how I learned it. This is where I learned it. I read this book. I saw this movie. whatever it was. And when I got the feel of how that was supposed to go, I was rolling. I was typing. And I mean, it took me a while. But so what I see about Jehovah's Witnesses is they need to do what we did to put together our portfolio for the prior learning assessment. They need to dig deep into their arsenal and they need to find out what they have, what skill set they have from Watchtower that can match real world. So I'm not saying that they can't do everything. Cause like I think the discipline that we had to study, and the going to meetings, being on the schedule, there's a lot more stuff than just public speaking that the Jehovah's Witnesses did. And so a lot of them need to just go up there and look and see what they did. And they need to take it from the angle of what we did to write our portfolio about the prior learning that we did to get those credits. That'd be very helpful.
That's a good point. I think if you just focus on an interest, and I'm speaking, to somebody who might be watching this in this state that I was in a while ago, pick an interest, focus on it. And then I know this sounds silly, but turn on the job notifications on LinkedIn. You'd be amazed. I mean, it's almost annoying at this point how many emails I get for job openings through LinkedIn that, I've just even had like a passing interest in, but you'd be surprised at like what you can draw on from your past experience. That's just one thing right out of the gate that I can think of like find an interest, see what's open in that field, and just turn on the job notifications. If you're in that position of looking for a career change, if you've got disfellowshipped and your business fell through because your witnesses all worked for you or whatever, I don't know. But those are just some practical small steps that you can take.
Yeah.
It's not that scary out there. Trust me.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest thing is realizing that there is people like yourself. You took what you learned and you're using. That's good.
Right.
Exactly. Right. So Sean, now are you disfellowshipped now? And if you are, I'm assuming that you just totally cut off from all your family.
Yeah, we disassociated. So that's kind of like the worst of the worst, right? Like I don't know if you can even come back from that. I've never researched it. Not that I would want to, but my parents, I actually don't know where my parents are. I know that they sold their house. And we had some pretty heated arguments before we left and moved to Texas. And my dad is thoroughly convinced that he's going to see Armageddon before he dies. And he's 64 or 65. And he's still in good health. So he's got a ways to go. I have a brother and a sister-in-law who are both witnesses, and they were special pioneers or missionaries. I don't know where they are either. They're in California somewhere. But yeah, I mean, when we left, that was it. Like, I haven't had contact with any of my friends. And what's so sad is I still love them. I love everybody that I left behind. My people that I've known since I was a little kid, and nothing changes for me. Like, we left because we learned that we're being sold a bunch of garbage, but I still love these people, you know? And looking back, if we had left, I would have done it different. I would have gone a little bit slower. And I got to be honest, I freaked out. I totally lost it. I freaked out. And I started calling up everybody, and I was like, did you watch the Australian Royal Commission? And did you hear what Jeffrey Jackson said? And can you believe it? And, looking back, like, I probably freaked out some of my really good friends. But it's sad, because even if I think I left quietly, I'd probably still be in the circumstance I am in now, where nobody talks to us. And it's been difficult because I have kids who are 11, 9, and 7, and they have had a very difficult time wrapping their heads around, like, what happened. And I have to now field questions from them of, like, are we bad people? Did we make a bad decision? How come these people won't talk to us? Did we do something bad to them? It's just brutal, man. It's rough. And I don't regret it at all. I don't regret leaving one bit. But looking back, I probably would have done it a little different, just to kind of ease people into it, especially my kids. But we do have very supportive family, extended family who are not witnesses, and extended family on my wife's side that are they're awesome. They're great people.
That's an excellent point, man. Yeah. That's an excellent point. In fact, that's one of the things that we try to do on our channel, is help people to be able to do it a certain way. Sometimes we interview so many people like yourself, and they say exactly what you said. I still would have left, but I might have done it a little differently. Someone just contacted us recently. They got excited, and they shared everything basically with everyone they knew, and the backlash, they just weren't prepared for the backlash. And so I think, over time, more and more people who are realizing this is not the truth, they will be able to learn from people like yourself how to do it, so that you can basically leave on your terms, and you will then not allow others to deal with you on their terms.
Yeah.
That to me is the most important thing, is that you will deal with people on your terms, not on their terms, because they're already prepared to shut down. And most people don't realize how quickly that shutdown will take place. And man, I'll tell you, I mean, it is just so painful when you hear these stories of people where they made a phone call, and within like 4 or 5 hours, man, their entire support system was gone.
Gone. Yeah. That's so sad for people who are Bible studies. And if anybody is watching this who's kind of interested in witnesses, like you really don't know what you're getting into. You really do not know what is on the line.
Yeah.
And that's so funny you said that about the on their terms, right? Because my dad told me, I couldn't believe it. He told me right to my face, he was like, if you and your Megan move to Texas and you guys fade, he didn't say disassociate. He said, if you fade, your mom and I will treat you as if you're disfellowshipped, but we will still have access to our grandkids. And I was like, wait, how does that work?
How does that work, right?
Like, if you think about how disrespectful that is.
Oh, my goodness.
To be like, I'm going to shun you, but I'm going to move you aside and I'm going to still talk to my grandkids. So, and they tried it, man. They were like, they were sending them cards. They were doing, this was the most pathetic thing I ever did. Okay. I'm just going to put it all out there. There was one night when they called, they did a FaceTime and my kids were lined up in front of the iPad and they were on the FaceTime. And I was like this, like trying to hit the little, like boop, but get out of the frame and like duck so that it didn't see me. And I was like, that's when it clicked for me. I was like, I'm a full grown man. I'm hiding in my own home. I'm in Texas. My parents are in California and I'm hiding. I'm ducking out of view. What kind of message is this sending to my kids? And finally I had the difficult call with them and I was just like, look, it's a full package or nothing at all, because this is just crazy disrespectful to me, my children. It's awful. This is really, really weird. And I'm just not going to participate in this. And that did not go well. That was a bad conversation, but it was the right one. And I'm glad that we took that stand. But man, that's a great point that you made. Like, it has to be on your terms, because witnesses will still expect that you have to play by their rules even when you're out.
Yes.
Just like, what the heck is that?
Yes.
But you know what else? I'm going to tell you something too, Sean. Your parents, it's not so much that they want to have a relationship. And I may be wrong to say this, but I think they feel they have a responsibility.
Yes.
To try to indoctrinate your children.
That's what the Watchtower
says. They can, keep giving them Watchtower messages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what they're supposed to do. I just can't stress this enough. We cannot stand around and accuse Jehovah's Witnesses of being a high control group or a cult and not expect to see high control and cult stuff. This is what a cult does.
Yeah.
This is what this. We are looking at this up close and personal. I will disregard you to get to your kids. That's what a cult does.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for most of us because it is so mind numbing. Mm-hmm. Your dad is probably a very well-respected Jehovah's Witness elder on his job and in the community with non-Jehovah's Witnesses. If they were to hear this conversation, they'd be like, Mr. Johnson won't talk to his grandkids.
Right.
My son ain't been in church in 20 years. And I still talk to him.
Right.
And so people can, and see, for me, and ladies, see, one of the things that we believe is that when people get this type of information, like you said, Bible studies, this is when we were becoming witnesses, we didn't know that a witness is treated this way who leaves. Now people know it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now people know it.
Yeah.
So John, is there anything, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I don't think in my parents' case that it's even a malicious, we're going to get those kids. It's not that. It's they fully believe, which, I can't fault them for, but it's just like it's so frustrating. It's really, really difficult. But there's people that I studied the Bible with that I actually hope that they don't wake up, because this one poor guy, looking back now, me and this other brother came and studied the Bible with this dude and blew up his life. His wife left him. They got divorced. He's remarried, but there was nothing wrong with her, nothing wrong with him. We just came, he started studying. She said, this is a cult. Don't get involved with these people. I'm going to leave you. And he went through with it. They got divorced. And now he's remarried. And I think, oh my God, I hope this guy never wakes up, because can you even imagine how much regret? I feel so bad about that one. I think about him every day almost.
And these are the type of experiences and accounts that we become familiar with because of being a part of that system, man. I mean,
right.
You know, it really is. But I mean, what you have shared with our audience, man, this is what people need to hear. And we appreciate you taking the time to do that. We really do. Really do.
Oh, I'm so happy to be on this channel. For real, I can't even believe I'm talking to you guys, because you were years ago, it was you two. I'll just never forget it. I was up super late folding laundry. I told Lady C this. Yeah, I told Lady C this when we first had our call. I was like, yeah, the first time I ever saw you two, I was up like 2 a.m. folding laundry, looking at apostate YouTube.
Oh man. Hey man, that's the safest time. That's the safest time.
Yeah, that's
scared
right.
out of my mind.
Yeah, so Sean, is there any further? Do you have any final comments that you'd like to make and to say to our audience?
Man, if you are considering studying with witnesses, I understand they're very, very kind people, and I still have a deep fondness and a love for a lot of the people that I left back home, and I don't think that they're bad people at all. And the community is very nice, so I understand the appeal of it, especially when we're living in kind of crazy times like this. But to engage with that community on a permanent basis comes at such a high cost. It's not worth it at all. And you would basically kind of have to live a lie if you educate yourself about how they really operate. So to each their own, but I would say steer clear. And if you're a PMO, I've been there, and it hurts so bad to be a PMO. And I understand why some people are PMOs for so long, because of the price that you pay to get out. You lose friends and family. So, there was a while where I was judgmental of people who were PMOs, and just thinking like, why would you ever do that? And how could you possibly? But now I get it. It's like, I mean, if you can swing it, I guess go for it. But just if you're disfellowshipped, if you're considering disassociation, it's really like, give yourself some time to breathe. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. I've been out for 2 years. Demons are not flying around my house. I'm not, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not cheating on my wife. My life did not fall apart. My life actually got better in a lot of ways. I have more time to pursue interests. I have a career now, which I didn't have before. I'm not worried about things like that. My kids have more friends than they ever had. We have fun. It's not scary. You just have to trust me. You have to believe me. You're not going to die. You'll be okay. It's rough and it's scary, but you'll be okay. And there's lots of people out there to support you. This is kind of long-winded, but I will end with this, that I have found that more people, the friendships that I've made since I've been out, have actually been because of the experience that my wife and I have gone through. People are so interested to meet somebody that has lived in a cult and got out of a cult. And it's gotten to the point where I kind of have gotten sick of talking about it with my friends, but they just have so many questions. They're like, wait, witnesses think this, and oh, I work with the witness, and I never thought it was a cult, and this is crazy. And I've actually started conversations and friendships with people based on my experience. So, if you're worried about finding good friendships to replace the ones that you've lost, I don't know what to tell you. They're out there. People will embrace you, and it's just not scary. It's fine. You'll be okay.
But yeah, so Sean, thank you so much for sharing that information. That's really good. Good food for thought for people.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. No, I love y'all. I don't really keep up with Exjw stuff too much, but I do make it a point to watch you guys when you got new videos.
We appreciate that.
Thank you for your support. We appreciate that. So this has been Lady C.
And this has been JT.
And we'll see you all on the next episode.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.